Hey there, YouTube friends. This is Carrie with Any Day Blessings, where I like to encourage other moms to be thankful and just allow that to transform your day. I talk more about that over on my Instagram and Facebook and blog, but over here on the YouTube channel, I only bring it up every now and again. I mainly keep it to homeschool and curriculum and tips and tricks related to our resources and things like that. So if that interests you, please consider subscribing and sticking around, and hopefully there'll be something helpful to you here. Today is a homeschool video. It is going to be the top 3 things that we changed in our homeschool from last year to this year that had the biggest impact on how the year went. So I don't really know which one of these things really was the main reason that things went better. I think it was just a combination of these 3 things and lots of prayer, lots of refocusing on the main reason that we're doing this and the main priority that we have, which is discipling our kiddos. So I'm just going to share these in any order. This doesn't really, this isn't meant to like indicate what I think the most important thing or the important change was. So the first thing that we changed from first grade to second grade was where we do our schooling every day. We are blessed to have a large enough home where I had a dedicated homeschool space last year. And it's just a little like nook or cove or whatever you want to call it in our finished full basement. It's about 3 or 4 feet wide by about 8 feet long. And it fit a desk and a bookshelf and our printer and an extra little shelf to put some manipulatives and games on. And I had wall space to put posters on, and we made a word wall, and we had a verse on the wall, and lots of fun things. It was a very inviting space, but it didn't work. And I just decided to change it up. I really don't know what made me think we can't school in here, but there was a lot of resistance to doing school last year on the part of my son, which then, I wasn't too excited to do it either because he just put up such a fight about doing school. And I think it's because it was kind of like an event every day. It was like, okay, let's go downstairs to school. He knew he was going to be down in that area, until we finished. And I just think it made it feel like public school at home. I don't know. It didn't feel very natural. It didn't allow for very much flexibility. And I know that there's a lot of people that really want that dedicated space and that have it and enjoy it. So I'm not in any way saying it's wrong or bad to use that, but for us, it felt actually very confining and not enjoyable, to be honest. So we now do school at the kitchen peninsula. It's not really an island. It's like a counter area that juts out from the rest of our counter. And there are 2 tall stools on one side, and then on the other side is like my workspace. And the dishwasher is right there, and the sink isn't too far. So it just is really natural for me to be doing some work in the kitchen and to call the kiddos over and say, hey, let's work on this now. And, sometimes I'll stop what I'm doing in the kitchen and actually, focus and do a lesson. And sometimes I'll just ask my son to give it a go, and I'm right there if you need me. He loves it. I love it. It doesn't feel nearly as unnatural. It feels much more of like it's flowing, just a natural flow of our day. It allows my daughter to be part of it. Last year we had to kind of like gate her off of this area because it was like not a very big space. And so she just hops up on the stool next to him, and I'll give her some dollar store workbooks or some Play-Doh or some dry erase little things that she can do. It's just working out lovely. It's just great. And so that was change number 1, just changing where we homeschool. We use the living room couch for read-alouds. We use the family room for spelling and the kitchen counter for just about everything else. And it's been great. What I did to kind of enable that was I cleared out one shelf, and I put this over on my Instagram page, I think I did a video about it here, but I can't remember. But I just created a little shelf in one of our kitchen cabinets. I cleared out everything that was in there, found another home for it or got rid of it, and I just basically turned a workbox on its side. So if you're familiar with those carts, those rainbow carts with the drawers that people make workboxes out of, I basically did that, but vertically. I just stacked the books vertically in our kitchen cabinet using little bookshelf or bookends as dividers, and it worked out great. I just kept all the daily stuff in there. All the backup stuff, extra games, manipulatives, that kind of stuff is still down in that dedicated homeschool space, but as far as using it to actually do daily lessons, just maybe a dozen times this year, you guys. It just didn't work out for us to be down there. So we use the rest of our house instead, and that has been a blessed change. Change number 2 was very closely related. We also changed our homeschool schedule. In fact, we got rid of it altogether. And we don't have a schedule. We have a checklist or a routine. I've showed this to you before, but I'll just highlight it because it definitely fits in this video. It was a change that produced a very palpable impact on our homeschool. My son and I both are very concerned with being punctual and timely and being late and running out of time and all of that. Those things are very stressful to us. So having a schedule where I had English at 10, math at 11 or whatever was really hard for us. We always felt behind, pressured, hurried, and it was not pleasant. So this year I decided to create a routine. I actually ended up treating it more like just a checklist because we don't go in this order every day. We don't. Many days we do, but we don't every day. And this is just things we want to get done in the day. And we just go on to the next thing whenever we finish the previous thing. If we don't get something done during a day, we just leave the box unchecked and catch up at the end of the week. I have built in a very light day on Wednesday, so that allows me to kind of catch up from Monday, Tuesday, and then on Friday I can catch up just from Thursday if needed. But we really haven't had to do a whole lot of catch up, except maybe when we were feeling sick or had a field trip or something else that kind of took up time in our day. But this just allows for such great flexibility. Some days we do the subjects in alphabetical order. Some days we go from the bottom of the checklist to the top. Some days my son picks the names of subjects out of a hat that he wants to do. It's just provided such so many options, really. It really has given us some variety, and no one is feeling pressured by time, and it is just a breath of fresh air. That was change number 2. Change number 3 was removing our spine. That actually sounds pretty painful. We got rid of having a box curriculum or some sort of spine to our homeschool. What I've done in the past is had a spine or a box curriculum that I started with and then added to it the things that we want to do. We were overloaded, and we constantly felt like, at least I felt this way. I hope this didn't come across to my son as much, but I constantly felt like I was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, trying to fit all these things that I really wanted to do in with this greater plan that had already been provided for me. And if I was going to follow the main plan, then I'm sure it would have been fine. But I didn't like all of the choices in the main plan. I didn't like everything that our spine suggested, and it didn't quite frankly fit where my child was at the time. So I was supplementing or changing out and switching, and it just became overwhelming. I don't want to say never. I rarely had everything I wanted at the time I wanted it, because I was just trying to keep up with requesting books from the library and arranging certain craft projects and this and that and the other, because it all wasn't written up in front of me. I was kind of gathering it on my own, and it was just too much. And so I let that go. That actually wasn't something I did at the beginning of the year. I wish I would have. But I did that midway through the year, and I just let our spine go. And now it's like I've given myself the permission to be an eclectic homeschooler. I like things, and I put them together in the way that makes the most sense for us. And I had a hard time letting go of the spine because there is security and structure there, and a little bit of reassurance as a homeschool parent to have that spine, that established boxed curriculum there as your guide. That is reassuring, and I understand that. But I have been I think doing this long enough now that I gave myself the grace to just say, pick what works for you, you know. And so we got rid of our spine. We don't use that anymore. And I don't plan to have a main spine. If you've seen my curriculum choices for next year, you know there's no spine. It's all just pick what works for each subject. And I mean, I'm looking forward to next year with much joy and anticipation. Last year I was a little scared because the year was had so many stressful times. There was lots of joy in last year, but there was so much stress too along with it that I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure how this year would go. And so with these changes, you know, this year was full of much more joy, many more learning opportunities because we both weren't completely frazzled. And I think looking ahead to next year, like it even looks even better because we can take the lessons learned from changing our schedule, changing our location, changing up, you know, saying goodbye to that spine and just doing what works for us. And I know that there are some of you that are going to be watching this saying, you know, that you're a new homeschool parent, or you're just coming out of maybe a full box curriculum and you're not ready to let all parts of it go yet. Some of these changes might make you scared to do, and that's okay. You know, don't change things that you're not ready to change. But when you're ready for a change, just start with something. Doesn't even have to be something big. I mean, we moved to a different place in our house, and it really did make a great impact. You wouldn't have thought that would have made such a big deal, but it did. And we took away the times off of our homeschool schedule, and we just have a checklist, and that made such a huge change. So just start small, pick something to change, stick with it for a couple weeks. Don't just try it for 1 or 2 days and say, well, this didn't work for us. She didn't know what she was talking about. Just change something and follow that change through for a couple weeks and see if it doesn't produce just some more peace in your homeschool and more joy. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope that this gives you some ideas of maybe things that you could tweak and change to just go forward next year, or maybe, you know, finish out this year with just that sigh of relief, that breath of fresh air. These aren't hard to do. Maybe the last one is a bit. I know for some it's hard to let go of that box curriculum and that guide, that spine. But try changing up the other two things then, if that's maybe a little too much to ask of you right now, and see if that doesn't help bring more joy to your homeschool days. If you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions for other simple changes like this, please leave those in the comments below. I look forward to finding them there. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.